Hey, my name is Cobie, and I'm so excited to be with you this evening. We're in the series called #Struggles, week 4, and I'm super excited to be with you guys. I really just consider this an honor and privilege to be able to share with you guys on Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. I love this group. I've been in here for just a long time. I went all the way through this youth group, and so this is home for me. This always will be. So as we are in week 4 of #Struggles, we're looking at what it looks like to follow Jesus in a selfie-centered world. Right? We live in this world where technology and social media are so present and so popular. Like, raise your hand if you're on some type of social media, if you have a TV at home. Like, come on, let's see the hand in the air. Like most of us, if not all of us, have this stuff in our lives. And it's crazy to think about that not so long ago, a lot of these things didn't even exist. I mean, iPhones and tablets and computers and all these things we consider to be normal and popular and all these different things, like, it wasn't so long ago that none of these things even existed. So this is a very relevant topic for us. I mean, how do we talk about Jesus and talk about the Bible, and how do we follow him in this world today when back then they didn't even have social media? They didn't even have technology to the level we do today. So how do we engage this idea of how do we mesh these ideas of our religion and Christianity and our faith with this idea of technology and social media? It's complicated and it's difficult. And so over the summer, we're going through this 8-week series called #Struggles, where we're talking about how do we follow Jesus in this world today with selfies and with social media and with all of this technology. See, guys, the average person, the studies have shown the average person spends roughly 7.5 hours a day in front of screens. You gotta think about this. Think about how crazy this is. There's only 24 hours in the day. Newsflash, right? I know you didn't know this or anything. 7.5 hours a day is the average amount of hours that a person spends in front of a screen. I mean, that's crazy. Especially when you consider this is kind of a new thing. The world in the grand scheme of history, since day one, it hasn't been around forever. And I'm not anti-technology. I don't want to come up here and be like who is this dude, Cobie? This anti-technology dude who's coming up here and tell me to get away from my phones and get away from my technology. That's not me. And I'm not here to preach that Jesus says, get away with all of this stuff. That's not what I'm trying to do it tonight. I'm actually going to challenge you to think about it a different way. I want to challenge you guys to think through the idea that maybe technology is a good thing and social media is a good thing. I actually enjoy these things, and I believe that we can use them to actually make our lives better. There's technology in place that help us to do things easier and quicker. There's social media helps us connect with people around the world, maybe when we're not with them in person. So I'm not going to stand up here today and say, hey, every single one of you, get off of social media, throw away your television, throw away your toothbrush, your manual toothbrush, or automatic, all these things. I'm not here to say everything that runs out of an outlet, throw in the trash tonight. Anybody want to walk down the aisle, follow Jesus tonight, and throw away any technology, right? That's not what I'm doing, guys. Okay, yeah, you put your hands down. I'm kidding. I'm not here tonight to challenge you to do away with your social media, and I'm not here tonight to ask you to throw away a television. Actually, what I want to challenge you with tonight, as we're talking about these ideas, I want to ask you, how can we engage these things and still follow Jesus at the same time? How can we walk in this straight and narrow path? How can we walk in our faith with Jesus and still have this technology and this social media? How can we live today as a Christian following Jesus in a selfie-centered world? There was a study several years ago done at the University of Michigan. All right, and they studied college students over a 30-year period. Okay, and they basically tracked these college students over the course of 30 years to follow their attitudes and their feelings and their emotions. And I'm as a college student who goes away to college and experiences that life, I just think through that and I'm man, those results probably, I would pay to see that, right? Like college students go through so many emotions in one day. Like I thought it peaked at junior high, and then I went to high school, and then I thought it peaked, and then I went to college, and I was like, man, does it get any crazier than this? Because it just seems crazy. I mean, people go away from home for the first time. They're taking college classes, the most difficult classes they've ever taken before. They're engaging with professors on a very high level of education. They're trying to buy things and have a job. Like these are some of these things for a lot of people the first time they ever go through this. So this study, though, follows the attitudes, feelings, and emotions of college students over 30 years. And they want to track, okay, in the 1900s all the way until present day, what has changed in college students at the University of Michigan? So they follow these students, and one of the areas that they track was empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feeling of another. So they tracked this over the 30 years, and they found throughout the 30 years that empathy declined drastically. The empathy, the ability to understand and share the feeling of another, the ability to actually feel for someone and understand someone has drastically declined. And so we're looking at these college students over the last 30 years, and they were able to somehow put a number to that. And they tried to say that over the last 30 years, the college students have gone down 40% in the amount that they care for people. That they're empathetic, their empathy has gone down 40%. They care about people 40% less than they used to. Just let that resonate for a second in your mind. And there has to be something that has made this happen. And what they went to do is they went to go on to say that they believe that the screens and the technology has caused a lot of this. This is a more modern idea. We're spending hours on screens. We're spending on average 7.5 hours on screens a day. And they're saying a lot of this is because of the screens. Guys, the reality is our ability to understand and share the feeling of another, empathy, has gone down drastically. It has just gone down. And so what I'm asking today is why does technology do this to us? I mean, because you think about technology and you think through this and you're like, man, I go on social media to watch and to view what other people are doing. Right? Like my friend is not in town right now, so I want to go see what he or she is doing across the country on their vacation. So I'm going to go and log on and I'm going to go see that, and then you come to find out that maybe that actually gets turned on yourself. And then you walk away saying, maybe I want to go on a vacation. See, as you think about social media and think about technology, you often think about how it actually it has to do with other people, but in reality, it actually affects you more than anything else. And it causes you to think more and more about yourself. That the more that we engage these things, the more and more that if we're not careful, the more and more selfish we become. The more and more that we focus on ourselves. That we're not focused on how other people are doing. We don't care about how our friend is doing. We're not able to feel and understand them, but instead we're selfish and only focus on ourselves. See, the rise in technology has caused us to think exponentially less about ourselves or about others. Technology has caused us to think only more about ourselves. Which again, it seems kind of opposite, doesn't it? It seems like my social media accounts will help me keep in contact with others, but in fact, it actually makes you think more and more about yourself. You think about the pictures that you post, and how that just messes with your mind. And you think about how you want to get the comments and the likes. And this isn't new. Like this has been going on now for a little bit. And it continues to happen. And so what they're seeing happen is a shift that the younger the kids are now that they're starting with these screens, the more selfish they become. And I think as a culture, we're becoming more and more selfish. We think about ourselves more than others. Even though as believers, we believe that we need to think about others' needs first before our own, we still come back thinking about ourselves first and foremost. There was a comedian, Brian Reagan, who has a little piece on this. He kind of talks about this human condition of thinking about yourself and wanting to beat everybody else and wanting to one-up everybody else. He calls it the me monster. Take a look at the screen.
I've been kind of quiet off stage. A lot of people don't realize that. I was at a dinner party recently. A bunch of people that I don't know. One guy talking plenty for everybody. And then me, myself, right, and then I, and then myself, and me. I couldn't tell this one about I, because I was talking about myself, and then me. Beware the me monster. So I tried to jump in with a little story. I don't want to just sit there the whole night. Right when I'm done with my story, this guy goes, "That ain't nothing." Oh, well, didn't mean to waste everybody's time. Telling my nothing story. Here, let Marco Polo speak. He's back with tales of adventure. My story ain't nothing. Maybe it wasn't, because I made the mistake of trying to tell a story about having only 2 wisdom teeth pulled, and I learned a lesson. Don't ever try to tell a 2 wisdom tooth story, because you ain't going nowhere. The 4 wisdom teeth people are going to parachute in and cut you off at the pass. Halt with your 2 wisdom tooth tail. You will never complete one, trust me. I'm trying to tell my story. You know, I had some wisdom teeth pulled. I had 2, but I had 4 pulled. Oh, okay. No 5, no 9. I had 9 wisdom teeth pulled. All of mine were impacted. They were all coming upside down. The roots were up on my tongue, coming out my nose. They were tusks. I was a warthog. No anesthesia. They pulled them out with pliers. I was eating corn on the cob that afternoon. Pin the blue ribbon upon his chest. That knocks the socks off of my wisdom tooth tail. Why do people need to top other people? I've never understood it, and I see it all the time. Obviously, people get something out of it. At best, people wait for your lips to stop. Yeah, as soon as... Yeah, you me! You see the difference? You see that? Now I do. What is it about the human condition? People get something out of that. That's why I have a social fantasy. I wish I was one of the 12 astronauts who have been on our moon. They must love knowing they can be anybody's story whenever they want. They can sit back quietly at a dinner party while some other person, some me monster's doing his thing, and let him go. Let him run with the line while you be quiet. Let him have his moment. Yeah, I'm a big traveler. I have my business all. I got my own global enterprise I got to check. And, driving the Autobahn because I keep a fleet of sports cars over in Zurich. And I got this Swiss account that I want to check out. Not a Kilimanjaro expedition. Might have to cancel that. Runways in Aspen are a lot shorter the first time I go in there. Pacific Rim Company, we're going to try to take that over. And global enterprise. I walked on the moon. Well, you have the floor, Moonwalker. You mentioned driving on the Autobahn. That reminded me. Once I was driving in the Sea of Tranquility. In my lunar rover. And I too was worried about our speeds, and I remembered why. We're the only ones on the moon.
So he's obviously super quirky and super weird and gets into whatever, but I think what he's talking about here is kind of true. Has anybody ever seen someone like this? And I raise my hand because I can easily become this person. right? Like anybody else know that like, so maybe it's you at the party that can easily out-talk anybody that tries to one-up. Man, there's something about this. There's something about this that speaks to our human condition and our desire to one-up people, and we it's almost like, this idea of putting the hand up, like waiting for the lips to stop moving so that you can go and you can tell your story. Sometimes we don't even wait for a person to finish talking, and we're already tuned out. You ever done that before? Someone ever been telling you their story, and you just stop listening to them talk because you're like already thinking about what you're going to say? I think we too often think about ourselves and are so selfish not to hear what other people need and what other people want. I think we live in a very selfish culture. And as much as this is just silliness that we can laugh about or whatever, but the reality is that this tends to be how a lot of us act. And maybe you're not the first person to talk and a person that wants the limelight, but maybe you still have some of these feelings in your heart. And I think I can say that it's fair to say that so many of us have these feelings, that we think and we have these selfish thoughts. But I want to challenge you guys that if we have chosen to follow Christ, then we need to understand that God calls us to love others as He has loved us. Guys, compassion counts. He has loved us first, and now we are called to go and love other people. And when we're so focused on ourselves and so selfish in the way that we live our lives, then we're lacking the ability to truly love and hear and feel and hurt with other people. Jesus is the best example of compassion. As we look at the New Testament and the story of Jesus, Jesus walks on earth. And he goes and he communicates and he comes in contact with so many people. Jesus lives out what it means to have compassion, to feel for someone. Every time we see the word Jesus and compassion together, he is doing something. It's interesting. As you study the New Testament, every time you see Jesus and then it says Jesus has compassion, he goes and does something. And so I want to look at two passages, Mark 1, 40 through 42. There's a man that comes to Jesus and he gets on his knees and he looks up to Jesus and he says, Jesus, I have leprosy, will you heal me? And the text says Jesus was filled with compassion. Jesus saw this man on the ground in front of him with leprosy on his knees, begging for help, begging for healing. And it says Jesus had compassion. And so what did Jesus do? Jesus went then and healed him. In Matthew 20, 29 through 30, there were two blind men on the side of the road, and they did not see Jesus walk by. They must have heard him somehow because they were blind. But then they saw him. Tend to think that, man, we can sit here and we can have compassion by seeing something that is happening, and then we just move on with our day. But see, Jesus has a different story to tell. Jesus in the New Testament says, man, when he was filled with compassion, when he saw someone in need, he was actually moved to action. Because true compassion demands action. It's part of the formula. It's part of the story. It's part of if you have compassion, then you're actually going to do something about it. But the reality is compassion comes with a cost. Compassion isn't easy, right? Because clicking is easy. Clicking is comfortable. As you're going along your phone and you're going through the social media, you can give it a double tap. And this is easy and this is comfortable. Clicking is comfortable, but compassion is difficult. Compassion means you actually have to get in there. And you actually have to go into and have a relationship with someone. You actually have to do something. Compassion is not easy, but I believe that's where Jesus is calling us to be. Jesus is actually calling us to get our hands messy for a second. And not to just be sitting down on your chair, on your phone, and seeing something that there's a need, and just feeling an emotion towards it. God's actually calling you to have compassion and have an action towards that. And I want to look at a story. I'm going to read a story to us that Jesus tells. He tells this story in Luke chapter 10. He says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Yo, this dude just got jumped. Okay? I mean, he just got stripped of his clothes, beat down, and then left for dead. It says a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. You ever done that with someone? You ever seen someone that you really wish you didn't want to see right now? And you're kind of walking, and you're like, oh man, this person's coming, and you pull out your phone, and you're like, okay, I'm going to kind of awkwardly walk by to pretend they don't see me, and I don't see them. You ever done this? Guys, they're talking about a priest here, a pastor, someone of religious authority who's supposed to be a good, moral person. He sees this person beat up on the side of the road and keeps walking. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, pass by on the other side. A Levite, a brother, someone who was supposed to be on his side. And then it says, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. So the Samaritan is actually his enemy here. The Samaritan is to this person, and these were not supposed to be friends. These people were actually supposed to be enemies. When he saw him, he probably should have laughed at him. He probably should have seen him beat up on the ground, almost naked, and just bleeding all over, and he probably should have laughed at him and said, oh, you sucker, and kept walking. He should have done worse what the priest and the Levite did. But what he instead decides to do is it says he had pity on him. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took 2 of his dollars and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. I mean, he literally takes him, he picks him up, puts him on this donkey. I'm kind of picturing like this dude's just nasty right now. This man just got jumped, like left for dead. He's not looking pretty right now. And they take him up and he puts him on the donkey. They go to this hotel, pay him some money, which is actually 2 days worth of his wages. This isn't cheap. This isn't actually $2. This is the equivalent of 2 days' work that he puts on this man that was supposed to be his enemy. So he gives this innkeeper this money and says, take care of him, let him house here, and I will actually also pay anything else on top of it that you need. This man had compassion and love for this person. He cared for this person. He didn't just leave him out for dead. The priest, the pastor, this good, moral person, saw him and walked by. This Levite, this friend of his walked by. And then we have an enemy come by. Someone from the opposite culture that was actually enemies. He took care of him. But Jesus doesn't say compassion's easy here. He doesn't say that, oh, when you feel compassion and you felt called to move and actually have an action in place. Like, he's called here to spend money and time and resources on this man who's an enemy. Guys, compassion is not easy. It's difficult. Your hands will get messy. It's not a safe place to be all the time. But I actually believe as Christians that we're called into these messy areas, that we're called into these relationships and these places that aren't always easy, that we're actually supposed to engage with this. Too often in our culture, we want this drive-by compassion. That we're okay with this, like this drive-through style. That you're going through the line and you get to the door and you check out the little problem going on and then you just go on with your day. We like this idea of drive-by compassion or drive-through compassion. It doesn't really affect our lives, that we're just on our way and we just keep going. Compassion is messy though. Clicking is clean, clicking is easy. Going on our phones or seeing something on TV, it might be easy and clean. But true compassion can be difficult. I really believe that Jesus has called us into these messy areas. So I guess my question for you tonight is, where's God calling you? You might see people around you hurting. You might see those around you that you have a relationship with, that maybe you feel called to go and talk with them, or go and engage a relationship with them. Maybe God's calling you to get your hands a little dirty into messy areas where it won't be comfortable all the time. But it's not meant to be easy, right? God's calling us into these relationships. that I believe we can change people's lives when we're willing to be uncomfortable. See, I firmly believe that we are called to be people marked with love and compassion in the midst of this self-centered world. I'm fully convinced that in this world where they say it's me, 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 where it's the me monster all the time, in a culture where everything is selfish and about ourselves, I firmly believe that we are called to engage with the culture. And to say, I'm not going to be selfish, but I'm actually going to engage in these messy, hard situations and relationships. Now, I asked a friend to come up here. Fallon, will you come up here, please? I asked Fallon to come up here to help us with an illustration here. You guys know I like my illustrations sometimes, and Fallon's going to lay down on this bed. Okay, and this is a cot, and I'm hoping it's sturdy enough to actually hold her. But we have a problem here tonight, guys. Fallon is very, very sick. Fallon is not feeling good. She's actually feeling very uncomfortable. She's in this bed at home by herself. You guys are not in the room right now, and she just has a big problem. Her tummy hurts. Isn't that terrible? Isn't the worst? And in fact, she goes to drink water, and she just is having a very, very difficult time even taking in any water. Oh. Did you just throw up? For real? Oh, wow. I didn't know you were actually sick, guys. See, Fallon here is sick. She's not feeling good. She's laying down in her bed because she has a tummy ache. But stay with me for a second. Have you ever been a person here in a different location on your phone and you get a text say, hey, Cobie, sorry, I can't make it out. I'm sick. Cobie, like Cobie, I know that we had plans to hang out, but I can't make it tonight. Have you ever gone on social media? Have you ever gone on Facebook or Instagram and see someone's cry for help? Have you ever seen someone feeling uncomfortable or feeling hurt or feeling whatever that might be? Have you ever been on your phone going through and seeing this stuff happen and you just keep clicking and clicking and clicking? You might feel for a second. You might say, oh man, I'm sorry. You might even send that text and say, Fallon, I'm sorry you're not feeling good. I'll be praying for you. Right? Like, oh, I hope you get better. I hope to see you soon. But guys, I am convinced that we're called to more than that. That I'm not saying to throw this in the trash can. I'm not saying to do away with your social media or all these different things. But what I'm challenging you guys with tonight, that we do not be selfish, that we actually think about other people and we practice presence. In fact, I don't think that we're called to live separate, but we're actually called to live together. Are you called right now to pull up a chair and simply be present with someone? Who are the people in your life that God has surrounded you with, your sphere of influence? Who has God placed you with intentionally so that you may speak into their lives? So that when they are hurting and when they are uncomfortable and when they are in need, that you can be there for them. That we do not sit far away and see the pain that is going on and just be okay and keep going. Guys, I want to be a people marked with compassion. Not a compassion that sees something and that keeps going. I want to be a people that are marked with the kind of compassion that Jesus had. The kind of compassion that when Jesus saw a need, that he can then go and be present. He healed them. He was with them. I don't know what that looks like for you tonight, but I'm challenging you to really examine your life tonight. Really examine the circles that Jesus has put around you and say, man, maybe where are you called? Who are you called to be present with? And I'm not talking necessarily a physical illness here. I'm talking about maybe a spiritual illness. Maybe someone who does not know God, who's searching. What does that look like for you? Where is God calling you to get your hands messy for a second? To get your hands dirty? To get uncomfortable? Where is God calling you into these weird, uncomfortable situations to be there for someone right now? Guys, we are called to be compassionate people. Compassionate people that demand action. That when we see a need, that when we see someone, in need that will go and do something about it. So in your groups tonight, I challenge you to talk about these circles that you're in and these people that God has surrounded you with. Where is God calling you to go? We are not called to be simply people who click, but we're called to be people of action. So I'm asking you that tonight. Where's God calling you? I believe that if we as a group decide to take this seriously and to go in the world and be compassionate people, that God will call us into some uncomfortable places, but God will also use us to change lives around the globe. And I firmly believe that. Will you hold the hand of those next to you? And as we pray tonight, I want you to look around the room, and this is family, this is home, and these are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And I also want you to think for a second that as much as I want to say go outside of these walls and be compassionate towards other people, I also want you to think about the hands of the people, those that you're holding right now. Maybe you're called to be compassionate and called to be present right now within this group. Will you pray with me right now? God, I believe firmly that we're called to be compassionate people, people who go in the world and that see needs and actually feel for them and actually do something. And in a society where empathy is going down, where we're a people group that, man, we don't feel for people in the same way that we used to. God, I pray that this group is different than the rest. I pray that we together can make a decision to follow you and to be a group marked as people of compassion, that we may see needs and that we may need them, or meet them. God, I pray that tonight in our groups that we may get honest with each other, that we may talk about how can we go out in the world and make a difference. God, we love you, and we thank you for your word. In your pray. Amen. You guys are dismissed. Peace.